Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Boo.
Boo hoo.
Don't cry, Gareth. We're going to start the podcast right now.
Yeah. Best intro ever. I'm going to send you an award in the post.
Can't believe no one's done that before.
No one's done it before.
What?
Welcome. Welcome. But now you have to really tell everyone who you are.
This is Melanie. Hi, Melanie Levenberg.
Hello. Welcome to the show. We just struggle to keep a straight face and keep our composure and do our introduction for everyone listening. So if you hear us giggling along the way, that's why. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We have another incredible guest episode today. And as you heard today, I'm joined by Melanie Levenberg, or as I refer to her as Mel. And that's how I'm going to use today, rather than your full name and last name and everything else. Mel is a long-time friend of both mine and Nikki's. And we have our paths have collided time and time again all over the place. So, that started with us originally moving to Canada, which was 15 years ago now, something like that. And just many social gatherings, we'll leave it at that. And we'll keep it professional. And when in these social gatherings, we connected, and then we constantly just bumped into each other all over the world. We've been on similar journeys and not so similar journeys. And then, we actually came back together and reconnected a lot this last year. With you helping us with business and some coaching, which we are very grateful for. And yeah, we want to talk a little bit. Well, we're not going to talk too much about that today, because you have got just a whole heap of things. Not only are you a business owner, multiple business owner, busy parent, recent winner of Fitness Instructor of the Year as well.
Thank you.
May I add?
Yes.
Celebrities up in here on the podcast. So you have got so many accolades, but what I want to hear a little bit about, and I'm not going to butcher what Play is all about. I'm going to let you tell everyone about your business, and then you're going to tell us a little bit about how you got into this with this kind of unique story. So take us away from there, I guess.
Perfect. Well, I also have to say that our paths collided when our daughters were born on the same day, which is so cool. So Harley and JJ born on the same day. I'm so excited to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me. Play is the company that I started to bring kids fitness and movement into the world, but I really stumbled my way into it. So kind of to start, what is Play, my company? What we do is I create dance and yoga programs, and I package them, and then I teach instructors how to teach those classes to kids in their communities. And those instructors buy a license from me, and then they launch their own classes in any city that they live in, anywhere around the world. So I've been doing online trainings and instructor trainings since before COVID. When the pandemic happened, we were already online, and there were already, a system in our household that allowed me to teach virtually to these instructors. So that's what we do. I help people launch their own kids' fitness businesses. But the programs that these people teach are dance and yoga, but they're play-based. And the idea here is that, and I think we're going to touch on this a little bit more, is that I didn't grow up as a dancer. I'm not creating dance programs because I have all this technique and background and you called me a celebrity. There was no way that I was ever on So You Think You Can Dance and Dancing with the Stars and things like that. I was a physical education teacher, and I became a PE teacher because I wanted to help kids discover the joy of living life in a body that is healthy and allows them to experience all kinds of things on this planet. And I just, I kind of stumbled my way into dance out of physical education. And we can talk a little bit more about that later, but that's essentially what Play is. It's like dance and yoga programs and we're developing some fitness programs that are play-based, physical literacy, fundamental movement skills, just giving the kids these foundational movement experiences so that no matter what they choose to do in their life, that they have the skills to explore different movement in sports and activities, and that they have some level of confidence when they go into those other activities because of the time that they spent with us in our programs and our instructors programs.
Love it. It's something that always fills my heart to hear those things that are helping kids. And I think we grew up in a generation where and I love the use of the word physical literacy and being at it, however that kind of sits with you as a terminology, whatever. is that so important for the next generation? We didn't have that growing up. We had, here, you can do exercise and it will basically stop you being fat. And that's kind of the message we got when we were growing up. And that rubs off on our kids. Like everything that happens and everything that comes to us is imprinted on our children. And, we do try so hard in our house and, and around our community to make sure that we're sending that message, right? We're trying to help adults understand that this is a life skill. Physical literacy is a life skill that you need. And so many people don't. And I come across adults every day of my life for the last 20 years that have no connection and idea about what's going on in their body. And it's sad that we haven't had that growing up. We haven't had the opportunity to get that. So I'm grateful, and I know many other people are grateful for you to kind of championing that and pioneering that with kids all over the world.
Amazing. And if someone doesn't know what physical literacy is, some people are like, oh yeah, physical literacy, it's like when kids take a ball and they like throw a ball and they spell out words, like throwing a ball towards a letter, and then they like spell. I'm like, no, physical literacy is essentially making sure that kids have the foundational movement skills, like jumping, running, catching, throwing, leaping. So they have this competence and the ability to do a range of different activities. But there's also two other domains of physical literacy, which is having confidence in yourself and developing confidence in kids when they are doing physical activity. And the third component, which I think touches to what you were saying, is the motivation to be active for life. So the full definition of physical literacy, a simple one that I love from Sport for Life, which is physical literacy is the competence, the confidence, and the motivation to be active for life. And the motivation side comes from building an intrinsic value for movement because you know what it brings to your life. And like what you're saying, like a lot of a generation of us were taught you move to lose weight, you move to sculpt your body, you move so that you can fit into this. Eventually, hopefully, you're going to get small enough or thin enough or fit enough to feel good enough. And it's like, that's the opposite of physical literacy. Physical literacy is that you get to celebrate your body today for wherever it is. There's no one can assess you and say you are physically literate, yes or no. It's a journey every single day, how your body is, how your energy is, how your motivation is, how your confidence is. And the goal is that we want to build an intrinsic value for movement so that no matter what happens, whether it's you're having a rough emotional day or there's a global pandemic, it shuts down all the access to your indoor spaces. Or you have your kids are at school and they had like a rough day, that they still choose to go and be active because they know that physical activity actually brings them, it enhances their life. And so that's the concept of physical literacy: the competence, the confidence, and motivation to be active for life. And I love it so much.
Yeah, it's so important, and I'm sure we're going to touch on that a whole heap. But what I want to know selfishly, and everyone listening, you get to benefit too. So this is how this podcast works. When you look at, and you came from physical education, so you had that background of, let's say, teaching, and I believe if you can coach and teach people, you can pretty much teach anything as long as you have an understanding of it. However, taking a step from that more academic environment and going into not only this incredible idea, but running a business and all the things that come with that, stepping away from, and I'll make a sweeping assumption here that, a salaried paid job with benefits and security and all those things that come, like many of us do. We make that decision. Now, I always am a little bit, I deep down know why I made a decision to go off and, embark on this journey of running a business, but it's always still a little bit cloudy for me. And I love to hear how other people make those brave steps. So not only were you not a dancer, but you were currently in this job, going about life on your journey. How do you even go about making that step and being kind of brave enough, and what's your process, and share that? Because I know lots of people want to do lots of things in their lives and don't know how to.
Great question. I did not just one day decide to take a leap of faith and become an entrepreneur. I stumbled my way into it. And I am a type A person. I am like school teachers. School teachers tend to not take risks. Like it's just one of the personality traits that we have. We're super organized. And so when I started, when I was kind of in a way pressurized and forced to figure out a new way to teach dance to kids, because I was just in a position in my career where I was told, hey, you're a physical education teacher, you have to teach other people how to teach all these other sports, but also dance. And I was like, I don't do the dance part. They're like, you're going to have to figure it out. So I just used a bunch of different inspirations that I had come across in the world of fitness instructing and dance. And I fused all these ideas and started teaching that to my students. And then I started sharing those ideas at conferences. And then those conferences, the teachers were like, this is awesome. Can you teach me how to do that? So I started running weekend workshops. I was like, I'll just run weekend workshops. It was like a little side hustle. Didn't even think about it. Didn't think I was going to make it into a business. I just wanted to help my fellow teachers do this. And then those weekend workshops became really popular and they asked me for more resources. So then I started creating videos and pre-recorded dances that they could teach. And then eventually I got to a point where those were so busy. I was working like Monday to Friday at teaching phys ed and teaching workshops. And then on the weekends, doing this other side mini business. And I kind of was like, okay, I think I'm going to take a chance on myself. But I didn't just stop everything in terms of my salaried positions and do that. I actually shifted my position at the organization I was working with to become a consultant. So I actually still had a portion of money that was coming towards me on a consistent basis as I built out my business. And then after 2 years of having that, you know, you have your core money and then you have your business money, then I was able to finally make that leap. And that's because that's what I needed for me and myself to feel comfortable taking this leap. I owned a condo and I didn't want to have the pressure of having to pay my mortgage. So I decided to start traveling the world and teaching workshops. And I put someone in my condo, rented out my condo. So like I really kind of like in a responsible, like for me way, made sure that all of my commitments and things were taken care of with some of this core money that I arranged. So then I worked a couple of, you know, hours every single day doing projects as a consultant. And then I would work on my business like 23 and a half of the other hours of my 24-hour day, you know, just like so much hustle in those first couple of coming years so that I could get to a place where I felt comfortable making that shift. And that came from a financial decision as well. It's like, I can't do this full time until this replaces it. So when you have, for me, it was about replacing my income. And so it meant that at some point, and there's a lot of burnout that comes with that. And it was chosen, it was conscious. I was like, I have to work hard in this amount of time. And if by this time I haven't done this, then I have to reevaluate if this business is going to work. But I gave myself a super pressurized, like hyper work period of time to be able to actually replace. So I think not enough people talk about that. People, they make it sound sexy. They're just like, oh, I just took a leap of faith and became an entrepreneur. And I just trusted myself and I trusted the universe. And I was like, okay, cool. The bank doesn't care about your universal leap of faith when they're asking for your mortgage payments. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you want to qualify for a house, like you need to know the game and so making decisions along the way, for me, it wasn't just a total leap of faith. I stumbled my way into entrepreneurship. And then I was running a business. I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, for many, many years. And then I figured it out. And that's why I've been now able to help other people figure out those stumbling your way into entrepreneurship, like paying taxes and all of those other things.
we should start a podcast called Stumbling into Entrepreneurship. I could definitely host that. I'm an expert. I, on the other hand, just decided to set fire to plan A and then stumble through it. And yeah, and you're right, the bank do not care. So yes, but interestingly enough, I'm quite have in the past been quite a cautious person. However, sometimes we're not given that opportunity, right? You know, with COVID and with us starting, you know, the Nock Academy, we weren't really given that. So it was an interesting thing. But that being said, we've also still got one full-time salary coming into the house. So it's again, you're finding that way to make it work for you. And it sounds like you were just willing to, without any expectation, be curious about a passion. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I think that when I look back on my journey, I started with such a like innocent obsession with helping teachers and adults be better at working with kids. Like it would keep me up at night thinking that people were like Googling a bunch of stuff or like preparing lesson plans that weren't good, or maybe even like not even choosing to work with kids because they didn't know what to do. Like it really affects me because I feel like I've been put on this planet to help other adults learn how to work better with kids. Like it's a weird thing to be put on the planet. It's a very specific micro niche, but I figured that out really young in my career that I really wanted to work with kids, but through adults, you know, to empower adults because I just have a calling to work with adults and help them work with kids better. So it kept me up. And then when you start your business and then it becomes I became really consumed with running a business and kind of forgot that connection to those adults. And we were just talking before the podcast started, how the last couple of years really reminded me and brought me back to that original core which is like being obsessed with serving who you're meant to serve. And when you focus on that, the business really, you need some skills, you need to know some stuff, but like, you don't, it doesn't feel so heavy, the business stuff, because you know what your purpose is. So yes.
Yeah, and I think what I figured out is that if you can find that sweet spot, that niche, whatever you call it, it typically the business will build. Yes, like you said, you need some systems, you need some knowledge, but typically what runs a business really is people coming in and paying you money, like at the end of the day. So if that can take care of itself, and and that's a minefield to navigate, but if you can get that right and you can serve for the right reason, then hopefully that the trickle down effect is that other people start to notice that, and then you end up getting kind of it's like your indirect marketing, right? Like you're not going out there and putting it out there, it's just coming to you. So
Absolutely.
that's really,
and I know that there's a lot of parents who are listening to this podcast. And if anyone's like thinking about maybe doing this, like just the one tip that I can give you in your first years is just like do it like it's 1984. Like the trick to business is like when you start off, people are like, buy the systems and you can scale and you can buy all the automations. And I'm like, no, just like for 2 years, just do business like it's 1984. Build relationships, do it all yourself, do things that are not scalable, and then scale when the scale is needed. But your core of your business will come from people knowing that you care about them. And at the start of your business, it's okay that it's not like this mega online system. Just do business, do the core of business, which is caring for people and building relationships and building trust. And I think that when people take that lens to it and they're willing to go and get their hands dirty and serve the people and do things that are not scalable, then that's where a lot of those foundational pieces are placed for businesses that become eventually successful as they can grow and scale.
yeah. Yeah, and just to follow on that, and the last kind of point on this before we move on to something else that I want to talk about is remember that whatever you're doing in life, you're sometimes already laying the foundation for that. So showing up as the best version of you, being authentic. And like I started a business 2 years ago, but I've been in fitness for 20 years. So what people are like, oh, you just managed to start a business and now it's there and it runs itself. I'm like, no, I started 22 years ago. I know how to build relationships. I have a network of people. So I was in the fortunate situation, or we were in the fortunate situation to be able to jump into like the systems. And so really what we did was just kind of switch the environment and then build from there, right? So you're doing the work. Sometimes you got to look at, what you're passionate about, or what you're spending your time on, because that already might be laying those foundations within your passions.
Oh yeah, you and Nikki are just so authentic, and no one ever feels like you're selling to them because you're not. You're literally like you have that passion to like help people. Like I think that's why we connected so many times, cross paths. It's like that, and like energy brings together like people, and it's really cool. I love it.
So true. Now I want to just press rewind a little bit because I want to go back to something that I think is massively important for people listening, and this is something that I struggle with as a parent, young child, is it's overwhelming when you're trying to be an active parent and you're trying to be a role model and you want to move and you want to feel great. You also want your kids to do this. However, we also don't want to shove them into like, doing something they don't want to do. You're going to come down and lift weights with me in the basement, or you're going to definitely go and play basketball or whatever it might be. It's hard not to push your kids towards something, and it's very overwhelming because I look out there, I'm like, all right, there's 17 dance programs, 47 skating programs, 1,000 different, arts and crafts, and there's so many things. So in your experience, when the parents are looking out there for something for their kids, and you obviously touched on the physical literacy and how important that is, but what would be your tips? Like, what do we look for, and how do we maybe know, how do we read our kids' responses and reactions? This might be a parenting expert question, but to know whether it is something that suits them, and maybe what do you see as a parent, but also as a business owner that interacts, with children through the adults in their life.
For sure. I mean, I have like a 5.5-year-old. We're both on the same path. So, at first it was like, you have to choose for your kids because you're just like, oh, let's have them try some stuff. So you have to be willing to expose your kids to a variety of different activities because they will start to tell you what they are interested in. So, when they're up until 4 years old, like the preschool age, it was just like a variety of different fun activities. And so how to know this, if this is, a quality program, I always say, look, is this something your child wants to do? And I think that as a parent, we have to check ourselves, because there is so much societal pressure of like having your kids in so many activities and them being overachievers. And whether that is conscious or subconscious, like there is this weird pressure that I think is there for parents to I don't say like to live vicariously through your kids, but to make sure that your kids are like thriving, you know? So it's a conversation I have a lot, because my take on it as a physical education teacher and someone who works with kids a lot is I wanted my child to be not programmed. My wife is the opposite. She grew up extremely programmed. And both of us turned out okay. You know, it's like, there's not one that's better than the other. And the conversation needs to be centered around our child, and she now has a voice. So now we started to talk about, what are you interested in taking? And we thought some stuff, we're like, piano. She's like, I don't want to do piano. We're like, oh, you sure about that? Because it's really good for your brain and learning. She's like, no, but she wanted to skate. So like ice skate. We're like, really? Like, we live in Whistler, so there's like skiing and snowboarding and lugeing, and her friends have all different activities, but she chose this skating thing. So that was interesting. Now, I know the question was like, how can you tell if it's a quality program? So my wife and I both run kids fitness companies, so we are very attuned to a quality program, very within minutes. But some questions that you want to ask the people and the companies, or about the companies, before you even sign your kids up, if there's something that's really important, which is important to us, is what is the training that the instructors who are going to be teaching, what are they required to have? So things like high five training is like gold star. If anyone tells you that all of their participants need to have this high five it's amazing. So high five is like a pretty like awesome course if they require their instructors to do that. If there's staff meetings, if they take the time to like train up their younger staff, like in Whistler, we have a housing crisis and a staffing crisis. So like there's a lot of like high school kids and just like transient people who just like pop in and who grab these jobs, and they might not necessarily be the expert at biking, but like our bike camp specifically in Whistler, they like take the time, and they're like, they've got this 2-weekend training experience, and they have to show that they pass these certain skills, then we allow them to go with kids. And some other places are just like, oh yeah, no, they're just, they take it more like a daycare kind of take on it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being like, listen, I just need childcare today. I'm going to pop them into this program. And I know that program is not, it's meant to be a daycare program, which is totally fine. But when you want your child to be learning a skill, and the purpose is for them to be building a skill and having progression and having different experiences, and it's a long-term program, I would say that you would want to know that the staff is well trained, and that there's that standard within that company. And obviously the obvious answer is, is your kid having fun? Is your kid having fun? We also like, okay, let's make this interesting. We also like ask our child, we're like, so like, what happened at camp today? You know, sometimes we're like, oh, this kid got lost. And it's always good when the instructors tell us that the child got lost and explains it, instead of just hearing it from the kids when they like try to like hide it. So there's been experiences, different camps and different experiences we've put her into, where it shows you the relationship that the organization has with the parents about what happens, versus I would say more untrained younger kids, where they're just like, oh, it happened, everything is good, we found the kid and it's all good, we don't need to talk about it. You can feel it as a parent what a quality program is, whether it's dance or sports or yoga. If a coach is being too intense with your kid, if a dance teacher is being too intense and your child is not enjoying themselves, like just always remember that it's about physical literacy, your child having experiences where they're learning stuff, and that the person who's coaching them is building their confidence. And within that experience, that they're having so much fun, that there's an intrinsic motivation for your child to continue to be active. And if that activity you sign them up for does not do all three of those things, not just the skills, but also the confidence and the motivation, I would just reevaluate if that's the best place to put your investment for your child.
Yeah, and you make a great point that it is an investment, and we have to consider that. And they always want to do everything, right? Especially when they're young. Yeah. And one thing I'll say as well, that when you said about, asking the question, right? Our kids have a voice, and I think we have to be aware of that as parents. But also remember that your kids will speak without speaking. So pay attention, because anyone that's had or has a 5-year-old, 6-year-old knows full when you ask them how things went, they went, I don't remember. It was 7 minutes ago. Yeah, I've forgotten. What did you learn today at dance class? So what you're going to do is pay attention to that, because often kids don't want to talk. So we make a habit of saying, I always say, it's nice to see you. You look like you enjoyed yourself. I'd love to hear about your dance class today when you want to share. And what I've found is that, that's just a really good, for me anyway, has been a really good parenting skill to learn. especially after school, after a long day. Share when you want to share. And then what you find is that they'll always come with both the good and the bad experiences. So rather than pushing for it, because as soon as you say, did you have a good time? Did you have a good time? The kids just say yes to shut you up, right? Yeah. So we always do that. And I think that really helps. And then you start to hear and then you watch. And then for us, like I said, they'll speak without speaking. So rather than telling us Saturday night, you know, Harley will say, I'm finished my dinner. Can I get down from the table? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then she just bursts into dance in the kitchen, right in the middle of the dinner table. So I'm like, oh, are you showing you what you learned at dance today? And she's like, yep. That tells me that you're enjoying yourself, you're learning something and you're ready to share it. So I think we just have to watch, right, to their emotion, their reactions and all those things, because that's so important.
Absolutely.
And I'll share.
I was going to say, can I share something about the questions that I learned that is massive? So like if you ask a child, how was the program, or like, how was your day? That's a really, like, their brains are just like overwhelmed by like, they've literally done a million things, like interactions of things. And like, so asking really specific questions has been really great. So it's like, did something really funny happen today? Or who did you sit beside at lunch? Or like dance. It was like, I know you had like a whole dance class, you probably learned a lot of moves, but was there like one move that like is awesome that you really loved more than one move? So like, what, just ask like something so specific where they can like take their brains and filter through all the stuff and then go to that thing and share it with you. They'll be more, and then you're totally right, they might not want to right away because they're coming out of such an experience. Whenever they come out of a program, they've just done a bazillion things in their bodies and their minds, and their experiences so done. Some kids are super talkative, but most kids are not. Give them time to process. What you're saying is perfect, but then they will share, but ask the specifics and it will give them time to think about that specific. Like we always say like, did something really funny happen? Like we ask that once a week in school or in program today. And then she'll be like, I don't know. And then like like an hour later, she'll be like, oh, this one thing. And then it's really cool to kind of also see how your kid thinks, some things that they think is funny or sad or like whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. It's so important to read. And I think the thing that really comes to mind for me is, imagine that now as an adult. So now we're going to talk to everyone listening, and I'm assuming there's no children listening. So I'm going to talk to everyone that's tuning in, and think about your experiences with exercise. When you come back from those experiences, how do you feel? What would you say if someone said to you, what was the funny thing that happened in the workout today? Or what was your favorite thing about the workout today? Or whatever it was. Like if someone was going to ask you that question, and they probably don't, but what would your reaction be? Like if your reaction is, oh, I hated it, it was a struggle, the instructor was horrible to me, my trainer made me do something I didn't like, or was rude to me, or didn't acknowledge my feelings. Like if those are the kind of things that are coming up for you, question also where you're what program you're putting yourself in as an adult. Like this is huge, right? Like we want to be empowered, and you want to feel, yes, you can feel like you work hard. I'm not saying it needs to be easy. Like you can be challenged, but you also have to enjoy that challenge. And if you don't, same thing, parent yourself and go find something that's creating that joy for movement. So guess what? You keep going back, and when you go back, you get results. So there you go.
Love it.
One other thing I have to share, because this is funny, you mentioned about how you don't want to push your kids into something and imprint on them too much, so you try and take a back seat. We did that in our house as much as possible. And Nikki was so hyper aware. She's like, I'm not going to make her dance. I'm not going to push her into doing dance. And Nikki, for anyone listening, it's not heard this, she's a professional dancer back when she was younger, before she moved into fitness. And she was so, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I was like, it doesn't matter. So she wants to do it. She wants to do it. And guess where she is? Right in the dance program. That's her thing. She's mum all over. And I'm like, sometimes it's just in there. It's in your genes. So be mindful that you don't imprint that, but understand that sometimes you're trying to avoid it, and they still end up there. So funny story. Yeah. Now, I'd love to now hear, and we're going to kind of continue on that same path. So kids come in, they find that program, and, they're doing play, they're doing the yoga program, the dance program, the fitness program. What I'd love to hear, and this might be hard to pinpoint, but maybe I'll make it more specific, like it was a child, is what have you seen in a certain person, a certain adult, where maybe that person came in with their kid, and if you have experienced this, kids being dropped off into a program, or you seeing this or hearing this through one of your instructors, is how is that experience from the child impacted the adult, like that you physically seen, maybe from someone dropping them off on week 1 to like, you know, week 20, or maybe a story that you've heard. And how can we, by promoting movement and health and well-being in our kids, how that impacts us as adults?
Yes, great question. It's my own experiences. It's the reason we have dance play adult workouts is because we're doing this with kids, this playful dance class. So the like quick synopsis of dance play is that we don't have choreography that is left foot or right foot. We focus on 3 rules, which are be positive, be fun, be yourself. So the kids come into class and they just have to follow those 3 rules. Be positive. So as they learn something, they have to, you know, just be positive. Instead of saying I can't do it, I'll try. They have to be the most fun version of themselves, and then they have to show off their own style. And so the kids come out of class, their faces are sweaty, they're smiling, and we teach them at the end of every class, they say, you are awesome. And we help them connect that to the parents. So like, you know, they go home and we teach them how to say positive things when they see things around their house. And so the parents are just like, they see their child transform. And then most often parents were like, oh, I wish we had something like this for us. So we launched dance play adult workout classes. And it's a class where it's the same thing. There's no right foot, left foot. It's music, it's movement. And I think that it's when we sign our kids up for classes so that they are physically active, you know, I think your audience perhaps is already very active as parents and role models, but it's important for us to know that it's not one or the other, it's both. It's like you being an active, healthy, happy person, fulfilled in doing whatever it is that you want to do. Like if you're obsessed with Legos and you love that and you're happy doing it, then show your kids your happiness. You know, if you, whatever it is, if you're like super into bird watching and, you know, you love that, just showing your kids that you're doing something that you love and somehow incorporating movement into your everyday life and your own journey with movement will affect your child and what they see as possible. And then often, you know, listen to your kids and like see how much fun they're having with movement. That fun does not stop when you're 12 or 14 or 16 if you're in quality programs. You know, you're allowed as an adult to have as much fun as your kids are having in their programs. And there's spaces like play programs, like the Nock Academy. There's amazing trainers who are out there that can create these beautiful spaces. Working out and being active and exercising doesn't have to be so hurtful or like, it doesn't have to suck. Can I say suck? I just said it, whatever. It doesn't have to suck. You know, there's so many trainers now, especially in the last 10 years that we've seen transform in the industry to create those spaces where movement can be fun. And when families exercise and make exercise and movement, not even exercise, because like exercise feels like it's weights and training. It's like, no, it's like just move, put music on and just have a party. I've never been more exhausted doing anything than like rolling around with my kid, like on the ground after dinner at night before bath time. Like I'm like sweating. That is hard work, but it's movement and it's playfulness and it's physical activity. So making that a part of your family's core values and activities and habits is the most powerful, potent thing that, you know, you as the leader of a family can do.
Yeah, you mentioned some super important things, and the first one I'll touch on is because we do find, I think it's human nature that we do lose a little bit of that fun within movement, but just within life, right? Like, because life happens and, you know, we get busy and we get jobs and we get responsibilities, and we mentioned it earlier, we got mortgages to pay, and, you know, we got to decide whether to make a brave decision and do something. So these things happen in life. What I'll say is find an environment, and I was going to say find children, but you might not be in that. You might just find a child, because that's probably illegal.
If you don't have a kid, don't go find a kid. That's fair.
Yeah, don't go find kids. If you have them, no. And what I was going to share, and I don't want to single out anyone that isn't having children or can't have children, but when I became a parent, I realized that it gave me this permission to play again. And it changed my life, not just because this is whole journey of becoming a parent, but it made me realize that I can play. We can put ridiculous YouTube dance videos on and do them in the lounge. But also outside of that, it allowed me to start drawing again, and allowed me to take art back on, which has been out of my life for 20 plus years and something I'm passionate about. And just things like that, anything creative that I love to do. Like we'll sit for hours and do those things. And it is ridiculous as it sounds. I needed permission to do that. Like I was going to go out and buy some Lego and then start doing it. Like I'm an adult and I've got a life I'm trying to live here. But then I realized, oh my God, this is great.
How fun are Legos, and how fun is coloring. I love coloring. Quiet coloring is like the best.
So good. And I think we find that But if that isn't something that's on your plan, your 10-year plan or whatever it is just find environments that allow you to do that do allow you to be yourself and turn up. And that's so important. And the second thing to touch on there is prioritizing. So we have no issue as busy parents that are managing a budget and trying to raise children and keep them alive. We have no issue prioritizing, saying we're going to give up Saturday morning like we do, and you're going to go to dance class because you loved it. And when you went to summer camp, you were like, I have to go back. I want to go next week. We prioritize that, right? We're going to budget for it. Saturday mornings, we're going to make sure we're available to drop her off and pick her up. Start doing that for yourself. Prioritize yourself. It's the same thing and it's just as important. And we can learn so much about it. Like, we want our kids to be healthy and active. So we put them in a program where they move and they learn all these things we've been talking about. Yet we're still sometimes fixed in this mindset. And I'm speaking from experience of these conversations I have every day, is people come to me and they think they have to do a certain thing to get results. And it's often, like you mentioned, it's driven by self-hatred. And then we don't prioritize that because of because of that exact mindset. And we're just not prioritizing it. And we need to be prioritizing it. So find things you love to do it for the right reason, and use the experience you have with your kids as a example of how to do that for yourself. I think that made sense. I waffled on a bit, but here we are.
I loved it. No, it's perfect. It's exactly right. And if I can share, like, and this is not something that comes intuitively naturally, I think, to us. Like, my wife and I run 4 businesses between the two of us. We are 2 busy people. And even in 2022, like, we just sat down and our child is evolving, what their needs are, their programs, their schedules. And we just are now existing in a balanced schedule that works for both of us. But it started with the first couple of years. It was like, what does our daughter need? And then what's our work schedule? And we put everything in there. And then whatever was left over, we'd be like, oh, and look, there's a Tuesday night. That's when you could go do this thing. And and we never ended up going to those things because we're just exhausted from the rest of the schedule. And the thing that changed in 2022 is that we redid our schedule first for what my wife and I need in order for us to be healthy and fulfilled and happy and able to then show up for the family and show up for our work. And then, so it was first in the calendar what we need and which are non-negotiables. And oh my gosh, how selfish, right? What about your child? It's like, well, if we're completely depleted, we're not serving our child or helping our staff in our businesses. So it was us first. And we had when you have a blank calendar and you get to put your stuff in, there's a lot more stuff that goes in. Before it was like a Tuesday night and a Saturday morning. Now it's like 5 days a week. We each have our own time to do our workouts and our movement and our whatever it is. Like, for me, sometimes I just need to like wake up and go for a walk and have a coffee. Quiet. Like, I get out of the house for morning routine. Like, that's what I need. I need to like not be involved with morning routine. That's such a gift as a parent. I don't know if there's parents, but I just get up and like leave the house and don't worry about anyone or anything. You have to do chores. Like, what a gift. I love that. Anyways, so, and then once you have that, then we put in our child's schedule, then we put in our work schedule, and we have the freedom obviously to flex our work schedule because we're all entrepreneurs. But it really made a difference in our overall life. Like not even consciously. It's kind of like this undercover thing that happened, is that we just noticed how we show up better for each other, for ourselves, for our daughter, for our businesses, just from having scheduled first for ourselves. And it's not like we're doing this at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, to me, it involves getting up earlier, but I know I have the support from that she's going to take morning routine because I can just leave. And that was a big shift. So I think the busy parent thing, we also only have one child, full transparency. Like, I look at people who have 2 and 3 children and I'm like, how do you do this? But I know that it is possible. It just sometimes requires getting up a little bit earlier or staying up a little bit later at night to get what you need, but making the time to do that. So
yeah, I agree. Sometimes you do have to stretch a day a little bit because, we can't get more time. We have to utilize it. But that comes to, being aware of things like how much sleep you need and then building a schedule around that. So that's something to add to that, right? Like, yes, build your schedule, but know that this is the time you need to go to bed. Like, I have a pretty hard, I won't be anywhere but in the bedroom 10 p.m. Like, that's it. Like, and it's normally, it's somewhere in that 9:30 to 10. And I'm normally like up there, brush my teeth, got everything ready. I'm in the bed. I'm like, it needs to be 10 o'clock. Because I know if I don't get up at 5, I don't get everything done. So I know, and I've had a lot of experience and I understand sleep and recovery, but I know I need 7 hours sleep. or a 7-hour window of sleep opportunity. People are so unaware of that. And like we said earlier, people are so disconnected from their bodies. Some people need 8. Great. Well, then you need to go to bed a bit earlier, right? Or, some people need to get up a little bit later. And you make it work. Like I get up at 5 so I can, and I've got all the skills for getting up at 5 a.m. and not waking anybody up. Like I've got the dog trained so she doesn't make any noise when we go for a walk. I have a silent alarm on my watch that vibrates so I don't wake anyone up. I've got the spot at the top of the stairs where I put my pile of clothes. So I literally just get out of the bed. I'm not like no one ever's in my house. Like it's the naked walk along the landing because I'm like out the room, alarm. I'm like door. I know how the door, like I open the door one side and I put my hand on the other side. So I only have to turn it once. And then like the coffee machine's already on. I know where everything is in the dark. I can get the dog leash on without making any noise. I can lock it, and then no one wakes up. And guess what? I have an hour and a half where I worry about everyone because they're fast asleep and I've not woken anyone up. So you can plan it. I like the blank calendar idea, and I think that's such a powerful tool for busy parents listening to know that it's okay to strip that back to nothing. And even if you've got a job that demands that you work between 8:30 and 4:30 or whatever it is okay, great. You've got that fixed schedule, but you get a break. You can schedule that break in like legally. Yeah. Right. And if it's not legal in your job, then you should probably question your employer.
No, but you would just start with like the 8 to 4, just be like, that's the block. But then start with everything else gone. Like to be like, well, don't worry about Timmy's hockey practice and like any of those things. Like actually don't. Like that's the thing is like you can't like self-sabotage yourself and be like, well, I don't want to take up the space. Like take up the space as a parent. Start there and communicate with your partner, whoever that is, like whatever, if you're still together or not, like whatever you need. And have that conversation, because I hope that you are with a support network and someone who's there to support you as a parent to say like, it's important for you to get what you need so that you can show up better for me, for our family, for our child, for all of it. So I really hope that, that conversation can happen also, because it's not just about you asking for time and putting it in there. It's a conversation and a negotiation between the 2 leaders of the family or 3 or however many you have to say, well, what do we all need to do so that we as the leaders get what we need? And then we put our children's schedules. And then, you know what, you might have put something in the calendar and at the end of the day, it doesn't work with Timmy's hockey schedule. So then you're just like, but this thing had a place in the calendar. So instead of Tuesday at 7 a.m., me doing my morning walk, I'm going to do it on Wednesday. Does that work? So you don't delete it. You just move it. Maybe it's like Tuesday at the end of the day. Once Timmy's sleeping, I'm going to go for a 1-hour walk. And your partner's like, yes, because this is your time. So it really has been so pivotal for our family to have that mindset in scheduling. And so I hope that helps.
Yeah, I definitely think it does. And I think we have to have it's great because it's a place to start. And that kind of blank canvas is a perfect place to start. It can be overwhelming, but knowing that there, like you said, there's those things you put, maybe it's your work schedule, maybe it's your business, maybe it's, and we did that with how we run life and business and did exactly the same thing. I'm like, all right, these are what are non-negotiable things in. All right, school starts at this time, school finishes at this time. That's not negotiable. I'm pretty sure the school boards are not going to change that for us. So that's staying the same. Now I have this time in the winter. I have these windows in the middle of the day. This is where I'm going to do all my work. I'm going to fit everything in there. I'm going to try to, and then I'm going to, figure out everything else. Right. And then knowing things like this is where building a routine is so important. I spoke about sleep cycles for parents, but what about for your kids? Build a sleep cycle, because you know what? At 7:30, Harley's in her bed, the door's closed, and she's in there until the next morning. And there's a whole routine that comes before that, and it's 5 years of work. But I now know at 7:30, like Nikki will go out and teach yoga in the evening. I know I've got an hour and a half here. So what do I need to do with my things that are important to me are going to fit in that spot? And I know the same thing in the morning. And if I know that my child's sleep schedule is 7:30 to 6:30, and I appreciate that not everyone's got that schedule but it is hard work and you have to train just like
do another podcast on that. Please do another podcast on that. I will listen to it. I'm not there. We're definitely not there.
Yeah. But I'm pretty militant with things like that. Yeah. But yeah, it started at 4 months old. We're 5 years later, and it's, it's a process that and if you don't keep it up, like you don't just do it once. Oh, I trained them once and they slept through the night. I'm like, keep going, right? And build those healthy habits, because that will affect your kids later in life and it affects you as an adult. So get those things, know where those routines are. And Nikki laughs at me. She's like, She's like, you have another freaking spreadsheet with like all the things you're doing on there. It's got your workouts in there and your classes, and it's got your coaching, and it's got school pickup time and dinner time and podcast. I'm like, yep. Like, because I know where everything is, right? And there's no way I could operate and maintain the level of wellness. And I say wellness from emotional, physical, mental. There's no way I'd maintain that without those things in place. So if you're struggling with those things, you've got to look at, why are you getting to that point of frustration where you're not able to look after your health and well-being? It probably starts right at the root of that, which is going to be planning. So that was extremely powerful. And I think anyone listening, take note, rewind this 5 minutes and listen again to how you can plan that and how you can prioritize yourself. Because without priorities, you're not going to fit those things in. And I think the final thing to say on that as well, and not a sales pitch at all, it might be a little bit, but is there's financial priority there too, because you know what, a good quality coach is going to cost you money, right? Not knowing, I'm going to prioritize health and well-being, and I've got 3 hours a week to do it, and then not knowing what you're doing is not going to help you, because then you're going to waste those 3 hours and not probably get the results you want to get. So maybe a good coach is going to help you with nutrition, movement, exercise. So sometimes it takes that conversation to be about financial priorities as well, and knowing where you're going to invest your money.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a perfect place to wrap up the show, but I would love to just hand it over to you. And if you'd like to share anything else, and also tell everybody where they can find you if they want to know more about Dance Play, if they want to know more about all the other things you're doing, business coaching, kids fitness, the 17 other businesses that you run. Where can people get hold of you?
The best place people can connect with me on Instagram is Melanie Levenberg, all one word. And from there, you can connect through my bio to Play Inc. We spell Play, PL, the number 3, the letter Y. And the number 3, you now know, is because of those 3 rules that we promote. So my business brand is PL3Y Inc., also on Instagram. And then if you're interested in business coaching, I do Impact Entrepreneurs. So I've got a little space there where people can come and get some support with launching their businesses. But ultimately, yeah, I'm here to help people who want to work with kids do that better, to help people who have awesome businesses do that better. And anything that we've talked about in the show, if you want to follow up with me, I would love to be a support. So feel free to reach out and DM me, and we'll keep chatting.
Sweet. Well, for all you people that don't have a pen to write that down, it will be in the show notes. So when it's safe to do so, you can click on that and take a look and get all the contact details. You can also contact us directly at the show as well, and we'll point you in the right direction. But this has been a pleasure. I'm respecting your time, everybody's listening time. I could talk to you. We could make a 14-hour podcast and we'd have things to talk about still. So I always appreciate our conversations, and I appreciate you. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, Gareth. It's always such a pleasure.
Awesome stuff. And the last thank you goes to everybody who tuned in today. If you have any questions or any feedback of the show, let us know. If you can spare 30 seconds today, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes or on Spotify. And we really appreciate all your support. That's it for this week, and we will catch you on next week's episode.